nice to see so many people returning, and I've been spotting in the chat a handful of people that are new. So for people that are new to me, my training's in clinical psychology, as Mariota said, and I've been a clinical psychologist in child and adolescent mental health services the past 17 years. So that means I have knowledge and skills in understanding a wide range of psychological difficulties and best supporting children and those who care for them. I've also been the clinical leads for children's social care therapeutic services, and I've trained other clinical psychologists in their postgraduate doctoral years to work in the NHS. And I've experience of working in the independent and the charitable sector. So hopefully I'll bring all of the practice-based evidence to answer some of the questions that I know people are keen to ask this evening. So that's a little bit about me. Let's just quickly recap what we went through last time. Well, we did a whistle-stop tour in the hour of positive parenting as a crash course, just to help you weather the storm of this exam season. So we looked briefly at what was going on in the adolescent's brain, and the biological, the psychological, and the social demands, the wider systemic demands that teens have in their lives that then cause them a whole host of stress, particularly around their education at this time of the exam season. And then we turned our attention to what we can do to help. And I encouraged you to think about taking care of you first and foremost, to then take care of your teens. And I stress the importance of the fundamental foundations of meeting our children's physical and safety, love and belonging and esteem needs to best then enable them to reach their potential in any area of their life, be that their education at this time. We paid some particular attention to establishing and maintaining positive relationships and connections. And we thought of ways that we could do that through spending positive time and time to talk, and how we would nurture self-esteem. We looked briefly at how it's important during this time for us and for the teens in our lives to try and reduce the threat in their lives and increase self-soothe. And I shared the importance of how we need to regulate first and foremost, to settle and soothe first and foremost, so that we can relate to ourselves and teens can relate to themselves and others, and then they can reach that reasoning, learning brain. We looked briefly at some stress management, and we looked at coaching rather than controlling, encouraging teens to make best use of their time. And we finished the webinar by thinking about what would need to happen for you to ask for help outside of your family and reach out to professionals. And then I set you going with 3 tasks to help you put into practice what you'd learned with me last Wednesday. So I asked you to think of an activity that you could join your teen in, find a time to talk throughout the week where you might use praise, where you may be relating to nurture positive self-esteem. And then I asked you to think about yourself. I asked you to think about a self-care regime to best enable you to care for others. And I asked you to report back. So I would love to hear how you've all been getting on with those tasks, so that we can learn from each other. And it may well be that some of you have encountered some challenges that we may be able to problem solve together. So after we review and you report back, then, as Mariota says, I'm here to answer any questions you might well have. So who wants to be brave in sharing how you got on with the tasks?
I'm sure someone has a question on the tip of their tongue.
And I also encouraged us last time, didn't I, to be compassionate and non-judgmental in our learning today. So hopefully that will ease people into sharing.
Can you hear me? I can share. It's Angela.
Lovely. Thanks, Angela. Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
I won't put my camera on because I've just got back and I'm slobbing off.
That's all right.
That's okay. As long as you can hear me.
I can.
No, just thank you. That was I found that really good last week, and I thought I knew everything. It's my second child, sort of been through it, but they're totally different, and this one really isn't as a talker, so I was finding it hard. He was very withdrawn and becoming more so with my nagging, so I stopped nagging a while back, to be honest. but I focused a lot on the praise, as you said, not being too intrusive. So he's had three this week, and I haven't jumped on him and said, how did it go? Just kind of kept it, waited for him to talk about it, which he has, but in his own time, in his own way. And I think that was helpful, and also the focusing on positive things, but just in different settings. So definitely helped. My one question for you is, any tips for when results come? And in my case, this isn't final. This is the effectively mocks. It's sort of the 1 year before the IB finishes. So any advice of what to do when the results come, and maybe some tips on having those conversations? I'll stop there. Thanks.
Tips on having difficult conversations around the results if they may not have got what they would have liked. Is that what you're wondering?
Well, I think the easy conversations are quite easy, but yeah, anticipating a few difficult results. So sort of how to balance the, well, do we make a plan, or you can't dismiss it? It's sort of, but how to navigate that bit would be useful.
Yeah. Well, I'm really encouraged to hear that what you learned last week has strengthened up what you already knew first time round, and just giving you permission to pay attention to certain things and follow your child's lead, being kind of measured in your inquiries, and the kind of the temperature of your inquiries. So I'm really pleased that that's worked out for you. In terms of those difficult conversations around results, I think there's so much that we can be doing now in preparation, and we want to give our teens a relatively soft landing. So we want to help them become increasingly aware of their skills, their gifts and talents in all areas of their life. So if you thought about their gifts and talents as a pane of glass, their gifts and talents in education would be one pane of glass. And if you thought about that as a stained glass window, or one with multiple squares or panes of glass, they don't just exist and excel or find it tricky in their education. They've got all different facets of their life. So I think if we help nurture positive self-esteem, positive self-belief and confidence in all areas of their life, then if there is a challenge in another area of their life, they have enough kind of in the piggy bank. They have enough positive self-belief that will buffer them, really, that provide a soft landing so that they can sit and maybe tolerate some disappointment, maybe some frustration, maybe not meeting their own expectations or the expectations of others. And if the news comes and it's not what it needs to be or what's expected, then it would be about thinking of, sharing your feelings about what might have happened in a very child-centered positive way, rather than any criticism or any frustrations. It would be, I think, sharing your feelings in a very age-appropriate way, but inviting them in to give you their point of view as to what they think would happen or how they're feeling about the results, and listen to them, and then invite them to kind of problem solve with you as to what might need to happen next. And you can be clear about your expectations or your knowledge, and from the range of discussions you've had, choose together one that's, a mutual compromise that leads them in that next small step further to reaching their goals. But just a real openness and willingness to figure out together, the consequence of the results, and try the next step. There is a lovely little acronym that Dan Hughes, therapists, developed in a trauma response to kind of high levels of distress, called PACE, P-A-C-E. And I often use it as kind of a little bit of a response plan to any kind of distress or upset that I might see with children, where the P stands for playfulness, where, you might say, look, I'm in your corner. I'm here to fight around for you. Be playful in your sense of humour. And the A stands for acceptance. I can accept you're disappointed. I can accept that you feel that you wanted something more. And then the C stands for curiosity. I wonder statements, showing them that we wanted to attune to their experience, and get to know what's important to them for you to best help them. And then the E stands for empathy. that you're there experiencing their disappointments or frustrations with them, and you're here to tolerate that and be with them throughout. So the stuff that you can be doing on the run up, and then there's that kind of response little acronym. So I hope that kind of gives you another couple of tools in your toolkit.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for that, Angela. We have another question here. Louise, did you want to speak, or if not, I can read out your experience.
Yes, I've tried to work out how I could actually get my camera back on, but I can't. So hopefully,
Oh no, we can see
We
you.
can see you now, Louise. Yeah.
Oh, can you? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. I just can't see myself. That's fine. I couldn't find where I am, so that's fine. It was just my daughter is well, two things. She's struggling to revise. She knows she needs to and wants to, but she's been following like with the MyTutor suggestions, do 25 minutes, have 5-minute break, then go back to another 25 minutes, 5-minute break, then have a longer break and go back and do a different subject completely. So she's been working on all of that, but she gets to about 2 hours and she goes, I just can't do any more. Can't take it in, not understanding, and consequently sort of getting frustrated and then getting more emotional. I mean, last Friday, I mean, she's normally very resilient, very logical, practical. Last Friday was her last formal day in school, which got abruptly stopped due to a minority group causing damage to the property at the school. And the emotion since has just gone sky high. And I've tried all the listening, compassion, being flexible, and she can't fully put it into words, but it's not seeing her friends, it's not having the structure, it's not knowing what she's going to be doing next, because although she's applied to university, but she doesn't know what she wants to do really, so it's all uncertain. And at the moment I've tried to suggest her putting in a structure. She gets up each morning still, because she can drive, she takes her son into school. So she's got to get up, she's got to go and do something. She comes back and is then meant to be revising unless she's got an exam on. But it's trying, what else is there, or is that all there is to it? Just listening and letting her do it, or actually being more forceful, which I feel she should be doing more revision.
When we push, because they often get resentful and rebellious, and they're at the age where they're increasing in their level of independence and really don't like to be told what to do. I suppose what I'm hearing is that when she's done her 2 hours or motivating herself to do that work, a block might be kind of the threat, the danger that this is going to be unpleasant, I'm going to fall short, I'm not going to be able to do it, or that kind of stream of negative thinking that may be flooding the threat system. And you may well have remembered from last time round those 3 emotional systems, regulation systems in compassion focused therapy. And if she's panicking because she can't get back into it after 2 hours, or she can't motivate herself, that threat system is the one that's probably going to be bleeping and over blinking. She might be forcing herself and over driving, over prepping, over kind of punishing herself in some way, but it's the self-soothe that pales into insignificance. So I think after those 2 hours, Louise, if she's finding it difficult to do that last push of the last 25 minutes, it would be about just going to the soothing, the settling, the rest, the digest, and using some of those stress management techniques, reactively because stress is in her life, or just learning to do them proactively, because it's going to bring stress levels down in her life anyway. That's going to enable her to have a little bit more in the bank when she's sat into the exams. So any sort of grounding, any mindful breathing or soothing rhythmic breathing, any kind of compassionate colours or calm, safe space where we bring it to life through all of our 5 senses, any kind of relaxation, those kind of basic life support that speak to the heart rate variability, they speak to the engine of our body that sends, and the brain that might be overthinking, that's sending all sorts of stress responses throughout our body. I'd say, try that and then see whether that opens up the emotional kind of arteries to then enable to learn. It's those 3 R's of Bruce Perry that I referred to last time, reaching the learning brain: regulate, settle and soothe, to relate to yourself and to others, to then be able to to reach that reasoning learning brain. Dan Siegel came up with a lovely hand brain model that describes the formation of the brain as how your hand is shaped here, and your wrist is the brainstem, and right in the middle of the brain is our amygdala, and it kind of it gets overactive when there's threat system signals coming into our brain, so it can flip its lid because it's stressed and over worried. And what happens when the amygdala, the emotional kind of response, flips its lid, is the prefrontal cortex of the brain disengages. The prefrontal cortex is learning, is reasoning, for example, organization and planning. And when that prefrontal cortex disengages, we can't reason, we can't learn. So that hand brain model helps us understand how we have to understand the emotional state that our teens are in and respond to that emotional state, because once the amygdala is settled and soothed and rested and digested, then the prefrontal cortex will re-engage, and then your daughter might be able to reach her learning brain.
Okay. And again, generally, I know she can do it, to get the grades that she needs. She's lacking that, faith and understanding or belief in herself. And so should I, again, just other than the soothing and encouraging, but just let her stick to her own timetable. If she wants to revise, let her revise. If she doesn't, just walk away and let her do it as she wants to.
Yes, I'd be inclined with her doing 2 hours already. It's not like she's doing nothing. She's giving it a really good go, isn't she?
Okay.
So I'd and some parents in this room will be going, 2 hours, if only I got 20 minutes out of my team. So I would be noticing that effort, noticing that participation, and giving specific label praise and positive attention. I've seen you apply yourself really well. You've got going with your revision. I've seen you sit at it for this amount of time. So labeling what you want to see more of and praising that. So it's kind of playing on this attention rule, Louise, where we give attention to anything we want to see any more of, and we ignore any of the minor naughties when there's no risk. So I might try that as initial response. And maybe it's just about being super creative, as we said last time, thinking of joining her in her time to learn. I mean, it's really hard to sit there and concentrate and revise for something that's going to stress you out, that's going to be hard on the day too. And some company goes down quite well.
She's not wanted that. I have tried that. I've tried,
Oh, good on you. You're working hard for her.
Yeah, I've tried, either sitting with her, I don't want you here. I've tried, come and talk to me about it. I don't want to talk to you about it. She talks to her friends, she shared it with her friends, and I go, okay, great. So I know she's talking about it and doing it, and she's obviously got a tutor where she's requested it. So I've picked on the routes. I've supported her where she but no, she's I'll do it my way. So which great. I've brought up a very independent young lady, but
a skill that is so desirable. It's just when you want them to do what you want them to do, that spirited independence is a little bit tricky.
Yes. Which hopefully it will pull off. But I suppose I want her to have achieved the best she can by, of whatever that is, rather than feeling that she's wasted prime time at the moment. Concentrate a bit more now, and then you can play as much as you like in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other take on it, isn't it? Everybody needs an incentive and some motivation, as well as the praise and the encouragement. If there is a nice treat going spare that's appropriate after the study session, if there's a nice distracting or enjoyable activity that follows, just as something to work towards. And I think they're having such a hard time, and there's so much expected of them at this age before they're actually able to really, kind of deliver on everything. I wouldn't be taking the reward back and be like, look, let's see how you get on, praise the effort, praise the participation, and look, at the end there's going to be a little treat for you. And then you've just got to be kind of in it to win it, to give the treat, even if you've kind of not seen exactly what you would like, because it's just an incentive to dangle the carrot, and then you might be able to refine that. Contingent on certain sorts of behaviour. But I can imagine as soon as you start to put down some limits and expectations, a spirited and independent sort, they kind of decide against.
Yes, challenging, very much challenging. Well, why is it that? So I'm having to be very measured and reasoned with my whys rather than was. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that, Louise.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And amazing that she drives her brother to school. That's
Yeah. She hasn't had a choice. I'm paying the petrol. So yeah, there's a bit of a two-way on that one. Yes.
And their keep.
Yeah.
So we had a direct message to me just now from a parent. I'll just read it to you, Louise. So my daughter studies a lot, but always gets disappointing results with exams. The tutors supporting her are always impressed with her participation, but this doesn't reflect in the results. How can I help? She is losing confidence in herself.
I suppose I'd be keen to know what method she's learning or using to learn, to make sure that it's kind of most effective and efficient. If she's sat there rewriting copious amounts of notes or writing prose in answers to things, she's not going to remember every word in that sentence for that exam. So I think method would be really important. And if her tutors are pleased with her participation, hopefully they're giving us specific advice as to the technique, how best to learn. I wonder whether it's her confidence that's getting in the way of her putting into practice all that she's learning that her tutors are pleased with. Do you think that might well be the case?
If you want to, they say yes.
Yes. So there have been so many teachers over my career that have said if only they had confidence in themselves, their potential, what they could achieve if only they believed in themselves. So then I'd be going back to the basics. Kids need to have, socially and emotionally secure environments and emotional well-being to make best use of their learning. So it really is those fundamental foundations about having that secure relationship with you, where it's one that nurtures self-esteem and positive belief, bringing that in through other people that are important in your daughter's life, letting them know what they're good at, providing that kind of soft landing, those pennies in the piggy bank. And so that you would hopefully fill up that piggy bank of confidence, and that coupled with some stress management, settling in soothing strategies, may well just open up an opportunity for them to pull in what they've learned. It's a very, very tricky age, adolescence, in terms of confidence. Self-consciousness goes through the roof. Teens want to have a very strong sense of acceptance and belongingness. They've got an awful lot of challenges to their development in terms of confidence and self-esteem. So it's a bit of a hot, kind of a hot pot anyway. So as much as you can do to foster that strong sense of self in relationships, environments, and in attributes at home, that would hopefully give them something to kind of rely on when they feel down on themselves. And compassion, I've heard once that self-compassion is your warrior when self-esteem lets you down. And it might be that our teens aren't open to us sharing very powerful psychological information, but they might be open to their favorite singer or their favorite band doing that. And this incredibly inspiring music out there that really pull on the idea of self-compassion even in the face of adversity. So if any of your teens do like The Greatest Showman, I know This Is Me, it's a fantastic song. I know Paloma Faith is really open about her own battles with mental health, and she remade a 60s song, Got to Make Your Own Kind of Music, I think it's called. I'm not going to sing it for you, don't worry. I once did that, and of course, never again. But the lyrics of that song are incredibly inspiring around diversity and inclusivity and difference and acceptance. So it may well be we find it, as well as the praise and the positive attention and relationship, we find another vehicle to communicate that confidence and that care. And it might be through music or people that they look up to, that they may follow on various forms of social media, podcasts, documentaries, or if there are any blogs from people that look back at their experience of adolescence and this time that are relatable it might provide an opportunity to enhance that confidence, so it may not get in the way quite as much of her delivering in all of her skills that she's learning.
Thanks for that, Louise. And the person who asked the question, if you want to ask anything else, send another message. There's another parent who came through as well just there, saying that their child has had a similar experience. They say thanks. So now another parent, Bianca, you've had raised your hand a while ago. Did you want to ask Louise a question?
Yeah, hi there. Hi everyone. I just wanted to know any advice for because my son's 15, how to encourage him to read more. He keeps saying sorry about the noise. He keeps saying he reads enough at school, but I don't think it's enough for his age. He's saying like he reads in the classroom in English. It's probably a couple of paragraphs. Just don't really know how to get around this. That's his answer every time. So I did say to him it doesn't have to be like English, like books, anything to do to do with school. This could be just books at home, just the books that we've got at home. I did buy books at Christmas, just various books, not like academic books, but just like Marvel books. There's a few other books that I brought from the works, and just a very varied amount different types of books, but unfortunately he keeps saying that he doesn't need to because he reads in English. So I don't really know.
Job is done, Mum. Quilter is full. I've done my reading. Oh yeah, absolutely. I
know it's difficult because in primary school, I don't know what happens when you're a teenager, but in primary school, I feel that children just want to read. I mean, not every child, but certainly with my son, I actually had a bookshelf, like a bookcase for him, and it was fine. But started secondary school, and now it's just like no. And I am worried because he's doing his GCSEs next year, and any like English literature or language teacher will say, in order to pass that English exam, the level of reading has to be, it can't just be 2 paragraphs in lesson at school. I don't think that's acceptable. Sorry, it's loud.
Right. So I'm wondering whether his teachers believe the quota has been fulfilled and full. And if they think what's going on in school, that might be some encouragement for you. And then I think, your creativity is really admirable in terms of pulling in different types of literature that might interest him in a way that more formal text might not. So listening to you talk about Marvel and various other things, I've got to kind of find their interest and then find the reading material around that interest. If your son's mad on any sport, is it about getting autobiographies or pamphlets or magazines or annuals? If your son likes to cook, it's just reading anything, whether that's a recipe book. But I do think if there's a particular interest in a musician or a sport, you might be able to kind of captivate their interest in that way. And I suppose what I'd encourage you to do is, you're really keen for him to be reading more, and a lot of attention is going on to read this, have a look at this, have a look at that. And if that's not working out for you, I'd suggest you kind of change your strategy and maybe find something that is that carrot that you can dangle that incentivizes them a different way. But just kind of leave it in the environment, model good reading behavior in what you're doing with your newspapers and the books that you're reading. You can say, oh, have you read this newspaper report about somebody that may interest him that you may be aware of? And then kind of leave it. And as soon as you see him engaging that reading behavior, then that's the attention rule. Shine the spotlight on in a measured way that he doesn't think you're going doolally. The temperature's not too hot for him, but let him know it's really nice to see you read. It's a really interesting article. Just positively reinforce that specific behavior that you want to see more of. Do you think your son's got an interest, whether that be music or a sporting personality, where you could pull in some kind of reading material around those activities?
Yeah, he's interested in different things, with sports and everything, but I'm even worried that he said if he does want to read, it's going to be late at night. And when I mean late at night, I'm not even happy with the time he goes to bed, but we're talking 11, nearly 12 o'clock, when he's in his room by 9, but he doesn't feel tired. And I just it's just a vicious cycle, because the later it gets, then his argument is, I'm going to bed. And there's so many times when it's just getting late and he's like, bye mum, I'm going to bed. And then we go through the cycle again. For whatever reason, he's just not, he just doesn't want it. I mean, yeah, he'll just game, and then that's kind of the end of that. And he just keeps talking about the English like lesson at school, and I don't say anything after he says that. I just kind of I just don't say anything after that, because you know when he says I do read, or he'll say I read enough, but I know what that means. I don't think the English teachers are making him read for hours and hours. I mean, a lesson's an hour, so he's probably reading a couple of paragraphs and writing. I don't know, but he's literally saying he's doing a lot of reading, and his words is actually the word he actually uses is I'm doing a lot of reading. So I don't know. I don't know. When I was in school doing English, I don't think it was that much. Not in an hour, because you gotta remember we've only got an hour. The class doesn't get settled for about a good 10 minutes, and then you probably read a bit, and then you do the work, like the written work. So I don't know.
Full to the teachers who are skilled, Bianca, in this area, know much more about what's developmentally acceptable and what would be expected at your son's age, and just reach out to them and see whether they're happy. And it's obviously not just the quantity, is it? It's the kind of the quality, it's the comprehension, it's how he engages in the material, how he makes sense of it, to then kind of produce a desired outcome to whatever question might well be asked. The more you push him to read more, the more he's going to say I read enough, and then you're at loggerheads. So there was a slide last time round that talked about that coaching and that controlling, that I kind of detailed the little key ingredients earlier, and that might just be a little bit of an action plan to try and address this. But too much negative attention to a negative behavior that you don't want to see any more of will negatively reinforce it, which is why I've kind of asked you to think about praising when you see him engage, trying to find creative ways to get him engaged and have that positive reinforcement rather than the accidental negative reinforcement that happens in life.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. I'll try.
Best of luck with it. That's all we can do. Try.
And as well, Bianca, I asked in the chat because a few other parents all saying that they had exactly the same struggle as you, and some parents have come through with what has worked for their kids. So one parent here said that her experience was using, as Louise suggested, interests, sports people, graphic novels, and even gaming manuals.
Good one. Anime. I know a lot of teens are into anime, aren't they? Yeah.
And another parent here says she's got 4 kids, and the eldest 3 all started reading for enjoyment after they'd finished their GCSEs. So it's hard if it's like 2 years away. So anyway, she's not going to push it with the 4th. That's a nice one, especially if your kids are just about to finish their GCSEs. You could perhaps pull together a summer reading list based on their interests or places they're going. Another parent here said, I found boys often prefer non-fiction because they don't need to follow the whole story, and did it in and out, dipped in and out the bits that interested them. So perhaps there's area of history or history of a country they're interested in. And she says audiobooks are good for vocabulary and expression. And there was another one.
That's right. Yeah.
And, yes, there's just another one here, reading books together and supporting them, showing an interest in what they're reading, showing consistent interest and showing them that you have time for them, works, and they're hungry for attention. I guess sometimes kids might be hungry for attention, and sometimes as parents this evening have said, they're like, leave me alone. So it's all about letting them lead the way, I guess, as you say, Louise.
And reading's not for everybody. I know some really gifted, talented, bright individuals that are very successful in life that hate reading. Made the mistake of buying one of them a book once, like, oh, I don't read. You're like, surely you must have read to get yourself thus far. We've got to play to our strengths, haven't we? And it's not for everybody. And that can be accidentally you know, challenging or maybe kind of wounding for them if they don't fit a mold in a certain way.
And Lara, you say Apple Books is great. Could you maybe tell us what Apple Books is? And then because you've got your hand up if you wanted to ask your question as well.
Lara is my daughter. Sorry, I'm Nestle. I'm just passing on. She's obviously 14-year-old. She's watching with us. Thank you so much. She's a bit shy, but I put through to her.
Hi, Lara.
Hello. I use Apple Books on my Apple phone, and you can search up like books on there, like original books, any book, and it's just a good way because I don't really like picking up a book and reading a book, but when I look at my phone, kind of feels normal because I'm always on my phone.
It's like an extra limb, Lara, isn't it, nowadays? An extra appendage, absolutely. But you're right to raise that with us. It might not be reading, it might be in what form. So whether it's on a Kindle, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on another device, it might just be mixing up, whether it's audio. That's a great suggestion, Apple Books.
Hi, now Mother is speaking. My name is Nestle. Thank you so much, Dr. Egan, for your time. We thoroughly enjoyed it last week and this week. As I said, Lara was present with me last week as well. And we have a bit of difficulty to share, and we need your tips if possible. My daughter Lara finds it difficult to be motivated to revise, and she puts it off quite often. Any tips how to revise and get motivated? As a mother, I do all the positive phrases, rewards, treats. You know, she's spoiled to rotten. But anything else, she's listening as well. So,
well, look, Lara, you're in good company because I'm terrible at procrastinating and leaving things to last minute. And I had that experience during all of my GCSEs and A-levels and university. And in some ways now I've still not learned. I need that firework really to get me going. And I think sometimes our motivation is affected by fear that we're not going to be good at it. It's going to be hard work. And actually, once we get going, we can sometimes learn that actually it's not as bad as we think, that we can cope and things pass, our anxiety might pass or settle. So I wonder whether it's something before the motivation that might be acting as a barrier. And if it is, you know, about I'm not going to be good at this, it's not going to go in, I'm not going to learn, I'm not going to be able to do it, it's going to be awful, that's feeding the threat system. So it would be about just settling and soothing and trying to remember times where you've really not wanted to do it, it's really hard work, but you've given it a go and actually it's not been as bad as you thought, you've been able to cope, you've got through it, and it's and then holding on to those positive learning experiences.
Are you writing the
that you have to do that reminds you then that it's really not as bad as you might think next time round. Do you think it might be something like that, your confidence or your feeling enter into learning that's getting in the way of your motivation?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Look, you're not by yourself. There will be hundreds of thousands, probably millions of youngsters your age that are finding it really hard to get out of the starting blocks, really hard. But once you're out of those starting blocks and your brain has got some momentum and rhythm, it might maintain itself. So be kind to yourself. It's really normal. It's really understandable what you're going through. It's a hard slog. Lots of things are being asked of you. So just steady away, be measured and kind in your expectations and your pace. And think about small, steady steps to success. Just sitting there and getting your books out and thinking about what topics you might cover. And just having a look at it, you know, think about your effort and participation rather than I've got through those 3 modules and I know 75% of each module. They're big expectations. So I'd start small, measured and kind and build up, and that might enable you to get out the starting blocks.
Dr. Egan, maybe as a mother, it just, I have a light bulb moment. Sometimes she does 3, 4, 5 hours non-stopping. Maybe she's getting herself wound up for no reason. Maybe she doesn't want to start again because she knows that she's going to stay on 3, 4 hours. Maybe that's the problem. It just came to me right now as I'm listening to you. Maybe that is a problem.
So I remember, I think it was Louise that was mentioning earlier about, is it called the Pomodoro technique where it's 25 minutes, 5-10 minutes break, proper break, away from your desk, away from the learning room, go and get a drink, maybe a little bite to eat, move out of that transition, move out of that threshold. After your 5-10 minutes, go back in and do another 25 minutes and kind of do, I mean, you were saying, Louise, that your daughter might do 4 lots of that 25-minute cycle over a 2-hour period, so to speak. So your brain is going to tire. It's not got infinite capacity. You're going to have to enable it to rest and digest, to sleep well, for the learning to settle in. Maybe you're overtiring yourself. I would not want to sign myself up for a 5-hour revision session. No way would that happen to me. No wonder that's putting you off. So give yourself, 2 rounds of 25 and see how you get on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Egan. Thank you, everyone. Good luck. Cheers.
Good luck. Good luck, Lara.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I think so. We've got another hand raised. Benedicta, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, I would like to ask a question. First of all, thank you so much. I also joined last session. It's been very valuable. It's a question that I had in mind last time, but we ran out of time and it was quite busy where I was. But somebody else raised it regarding my son learning, spending quite a lot of time, appears to be studying a lot, but the results not, reflecting, or the grades not reflecting the amount of time spent. And you answered it quite well. So I'm just gonna, look into the ways that we can motivate him, get him to get more confidence, and check the methods of learning that he's using and what is out there. But I also spend some time to kind of tutor him myself, just to see. So for instance, we'll pick a math topic and I will explain, we will do examples together and he understands it. But the moment I leave him, he's stuck and he will spend like a long time. We will do it over and over and over. He will get it, give it, the next day we'll come back to it and he's forgotten. So I was beginning to worry, is there a special, learning needs that is affecting him? Or, that's been my concern. But when I speak to him, he says, yeah, Mom, I'm fine, I understand. But when I've sat with him and I've explained things to him, he gets it up to some point. But the moment I leave him, he's like forgotten the step. He will push himself, will get it to a point. The next day will come, he's forgotten it. So I began really, to worry that might be the problem. At the moment, I've had to put him in an in-person tuition. I mean, that's how I got in touch with MyTutor. So, but because of like how he was forgetting things and he can, easily cover up that, I'm fine, I understand, I know. If you are not with him in person, you might not pick certain things up. So I said, we'll start with in person to begin with. Once you pick up, then we come back online with my tutor. So that is my
positive connection might help to kind of lay down the memories. And what you're saying is actually in the short term he's holding on to the learning, but in the longer term, for some reason, it's not kind of being retained. And I would, as I've said before, and you've just summarized, technique and method, and get advice from people. There is a technique. There's varied ways to best learn, whether that's flashcards, whether that's posters, whether that's reading, whether that's rewriting to kind of commit it to memory in black and white, whether that's past exams, papers, whether that's looking at YouTube videos of people explaining certain, mathematical equations, how to work things out. It might be a series of varied ways to learn in more interesting, captivating ways, helps him retain the information. But of course, nerves can get in the way, a lack of confidence can get in the way, lack of sleep can get in the way. So it's really trying to carefully cover all bases, because you're almost testing out which hypotheses, which explanation helps to understand why the learning's not being kind of held on to.
So I don't know, I was like thinking, maybe does he need like learning assessment by a professional to really assess, just to get that out of my mind, that definitely he hasn't got any special needs. It's just like the technique of different ways of learning, because we have been trying different ways and trying to help him. and we're still assessing. But I don't want to be wasting time and money if the issue is probably he needs more time, and if that is made aware and the school would agree, then at least he knows that he hasn't got that pressure to finish the same time in the text like everybody else, and that can help him a little bit.
Well, speak to school then. Speak to school about, do they feel that he's not holding on to his learning? He's got the potential, but there may be some processing or memory thing that might be getting in the way. And if this has been a long-standing problem that he seems to be understanding, but for some reason not remembering or being able to kind of use that information, and people do have concerns about any or questions around specific learning needs, the school should have a special educational needs coordinator, a SENCO, that you could just ask the advice of, see if they can get to know the teachers that are alongside your son's learning, and ask if they've got any concerns. And it may be that they're trained in particular assessment tools that can do an initial assessment to see if there's any specific learning needs or emotional needs that might be getting in the way. And they're often best placed to tell you if there is a significant learning need that may need an educational psychologist to come into the school and do further assessments in a statutory level, public services, or they may have access to recommended educational psychologists in your area that can see, do an assessment to see the strengths of your son, but to see if there are any challenges in how they learn and remember.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay, best of luck.
Thanks so much, Benedicta. We have another direct question here. I'll just read it. So hello, my daughter has just done her A-level economics paper 1. She felt so deflated after it, doesn't think she has done well. She's been revising really well with taking breaks, but because she was so unhappy with the paper that she is starting at 9 till 1, and I guess 9 a.m. till 1 p.m, then 2 till 7, dinner and back working until 9. I think she's doing so much, but she's adamant she needs to work harder. How can I persuade her that more is not necessarily good?
I think you're right. You're spotting that overworking. We overtire, which can accidentally lead to the worst thing that we worry coming true. If you are overtired, if you are panicking, if confidence is getting in the way, then that's going to make it more likely that you're not going to be able to give of your best talent, give of your gifts and talents that then confirms your worst belief. Have you had other experiences of her overworking and it's turned out accidentally unhelpfully, that you could gently remind her of the learning that took place from that, or where she's been successful in allowing herself to rest, to settle and soothe, and her results have been favourable? And I think it would be, enticing her and making restful, settling and soothing activities engaging and interesting, to try and kind of just encourage her away from her books, because that's going to be an overtired brain and an overtired and stressed emotional system in the end. That's an awful lot, and it's for fear of failure, isn't it? So we may be understanding what the fear of failure might be about, whose expectation is driving her to overwork. Is that her own? Is that the school? Is that the community? Is that accidental messages in families that happen without any real malicious intent, and trying to encourage her to be compassionate about the normal struggles that everybody has, and the normal frustrations, disappointments that come everybody's way, that we have to learn to tolerate, turn into, and learn to compassionately work through.
Yeah, I wonder as well if perhaps the weekend, if you really can't tear them away from their desk during the week, if a kind of forced, I don't know, ice cream or park, or like literally driving them away.
Being away from home, absolutely, where the books aren't with them. Yeah.
so perhaps at least at some point in the week you can kind of make them unwind, and then they might find they have a clearer mind when they return to their desk. Just speaking from a family of overstudiers, and sometimes we're forced to go to the beach. Being lucky enough to be near a beach. So great, and yeah, thanks. I hope that was helpful for the parent who asked that. Let's see, so we have another direct question here. So we've just got 5 minutes left, so we'll try and get through a couple more questions. I'm glad that we've got through
Are you taking a break? You came to the end of that one, yes?
As many as we have so far. So here's another one. My daughter is having a big challenge as her A-level exams are starting very soon. And she has been completely out of action with severe glandular fever for the last 3 weeks. Oh, awful. That has completely wiped her out and knocked her revision out of sync. Any advice as to how I can support her? Obviously, she's stressing about not getting the grades she needs for university.
Obviously, her mind and her body will be recuperating. It will be weakened from having such a significant medical illness. Over pushing a body that needs to heal is going to be unhelpful. So it's really about stressing the importance that her physical care will provide a solid foundation for anything else that she learns. I'd encourage you to reach out to her form tutor or the pastoral support in school, whether that be the special educational needs coordinator, and talk about mitigating circumstances with regards to experiencing such a significant physical illness at this time of revision, and how it's impacted on her ability physically, her ability to concentrate. I'm sure as she's recuperating, she's fatigued. And of course, the worries about not being able to reach her potential are going to impact on her ability to give of her best. They're all very legitimate physical and emotional reasons why schools might think about mitigating circumstances, and they'll be best placed to advise you as to how difficult a person's physical and emotional health needs to be to warrant mitigating circumstances. But it may well be that there's some small informal changes that they can make in terms of where they may sit their exams, just a friendly face and reassuring messages to just help them feel as comfortable as they can going into those exams.
Thanks, Louise. I would certainly imagine that a different arrangement can be made for them, whether it's resits or the university taking into account if the university on the UCAS form is informed that they had illness before exams. I've heard of those sorts of adjustments being made before.
Yeah.
But good luck to her, and we hope she's feeling as well as she can.
Yes.
So we've got 2 minutes left. If there was a parent called Michaela, if you still wanted to ask your question, then do, or if anyone else would just like to chip in with the last question.
Hi, Michaela.
Oh, great.
Yes, hello. I wanted to ask you a question about, can you hear me?
I can, yeah, excuse me, yes I can. I've got hiccups, yes I can.
That's good. What I wanted to ask you is that what to do when sometimes you try to, I have my son and he doesn't want to share many things that he does. He wants to be to organize himself, to have his own structure, and he wants to be completely independent, and I really appreciate that, and I try not to be extremely present in all his organization. However, I am Italian and I grew up in Italy, so sometimes it would be useful for me to have a kind of understanding of what happens, not from the teacher but from himself, just from my son. So, but sometimes he puts a wall and he doesn't want to share, maybe because I ask and I try to ask too much. And this, obviously, instead of supporting him, I do exactly the contrary. I do the opposite. So, so how can, and he freezes out in this, and he's in year 10, obviously, and I don't want this to happen because I would like to have an exchange that helps him. So if before being, kind of joking and things like that helped, now he helps a little bit less because he's a teen now, he changed.
Yeah, and our sense of humour is not theirs.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So sometimes I find a wall and it's very difficult to break this wall, to try and get a kind of a hold through. Can you give a little bit of tip what I can use, not necessarily use, but anyway, just another overview, another point that I can take?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's an age-old, very common problem, isn't it? Parents asking their kids what's going on in their life, what are their exams. It's like, what have you had for lunch at school today?
Yeah.
They can't remember. They can't even tell you what they've just done 20 minutes earlier. The school may well have on their website, or they may well send home or email at the beginning of a term the learning plans, so that you're aware of the topic information from the horse's mouth, straight from the teacher. So you may not need to go to your son as a source. You might then just go, I'm aware that you're studying this, and I think it'd be a really good idea if we went here, because it's all about what you're learning. So obviously they're saying, don't come to me for the information. The more you go to them for the more information, the more they close down. So I'd get creative and think about how you can find out the other information to then let them know that you know a little bit, to give you a bit of a routine. But if the wall is up, no amount of knocking on that wall or chipping away at it is going to be a warm welcome on the other side. You'll just find them running away from the wall. So I think you've got to kind of follow their lead. And if they give you any tiny little tidbit, you might be jumping for joy inside, but just say, it's really nice to know what's going on in your life so that I can remember that for you. So you're praising them for sharing. So if the behaviors you want them to share, when they share with you about anything in their life, you can indirectly shape up sharing behavior around school with what they're doing when they share elsewhere in their life. So we look at the pro-social behavior that you want to see from your children, and it might be then it's an umbrella term that you can praise and reinforce that might make it more likely that they move from sharing what's going on, you know, gossip in their friendship group, if they're letting you into that side of their world, to sharing about what's going on in the classroom. I can hear that obviously there's a very genuine desire as a mother to know, to support, and that can sometimes make us feel quite anxious about not knowing. So I'd be thinking about, you know, what's going on for yourself and the desire to know, and maybe tuning in and understanding that in your awareness, and maybe kind of thinking about how you could settle and soothe your worries about needing to know in a way that might then have a positive impact on encouraging things from your child. And then when you hear it, being able to reinforce good sharing.
Thank you so much, really. It was really helpful.
Oh, pleasure. I'm glad that it's given you just another little bit of something to have a go at. And I say to everybody, you know, I don't know your children as well as you do. I couldn't possibly ever claim to. I'm just quickly harvesting little bits of information that you're sharing, wondering whether it could be this. And when I've got a little idea and wondering if it is that, then my suggestions are in line with that understanding. But obviously, I only know what you're sharing with me. So based on what I've heard, as I understand at this point in time, these little suggestions might help. Have a go at what I've suggested. And if it's not working, go back to the drawing board and be curious. It's the first rung on the ladder of helping is understanding. So be curious and wonder and think about possible explanations, and then tag an intervention onto a matched explanation and give it a go. And if it doesn't work, then that explanation, that understanding might not be accurate. Go back to the drawing board, rethink, and then pick a matched intervention that goes with that explanation, and just, you know, see what unfolds.
And good luck to everyone. I think the fact that you've all, I don't think my mum would ever have come to a parenting event to get advice. So I think the fact that you're all here and getting this advice, it's amazing. And just huge good luck to all of your kids and to all of you, both with their grades and everyone's well-being as well. There was just as we finished, there was a nice thing here from Ria, who said the only answer she gets from her child when she asks how's it going is stuff. So when she asks me what's for dinner, she also says stuff. I'm sure that works.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm grateful to know that there's stuff going on in your life in a really genuine way, without any sting in the tail or double speak. yeah, exactly what you've said, Mariota. Everybody's commitment is clear to see here. Really good intentions to best understand and best support. So you're already, you know, a long way down the line of doing the best for your children. So, you know, treat yourself kindly with compassion, and, you know, celebrate your intentions and your commitment, and that will hopefully keep you warm and keep you inspired to just keep trying, because it's not easy. Parenting is not for the faint-hearted, and it's not easy. So it's really encouraging that everybody's here with a commitment to keep trying and keep learning.
Thanks everyone. And so if you can listen again. We'll send you all the recording of tonight's session as well tomorrow morning. We'll also send you a survey where we'd love to hear about whether you'd like us to run similar events like this again, or similar forum events like this, but with a different topic. We'd love to know how we can help you holistically as a family. So yeah, thanks again everyone, and good night. We'll leave it there.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.